So for everyone who's returning from last week and the week before, and again, thank you for all your feedback. It's been very positive. I appreciate it. For all the newcomers, I strongly suggest that you go to my YouTube channel and watch the last, I think, two webinars. They're identified in the video section. They're not private. They're not members only or anything like that. Just click on the video link, not the shorts. They're each about a couple hours long, but we talk about buying the right business and how to find it, and then the 10 commandments and valuing a business. And we're trying to do this like in modules, right? As you progress through the process, not necessarily to mirror the exact steps. There's a little bit out of order, but to cover all the key areas. And so having the background of those prior webinars, I think, will be very helpful for you. For those of you who don't know me, and for those of you who do, I'll bore you a little bit quickly related to my background. I've been in the world of buying and selling businesses for 34 years. Hard to believe. And I've and all aspects. I've done buy side representation, sell side. I've purchased 14 of my own companies, including one co-investment, and deal sizes from $50,000 to $208 million. So I got a pretty good range in there. And, very important for everybody who's on this call to understand, I've been in your exact same situation. I've gone through what you have, maybe to a certain extent, but certainly what you're going to go through. And so when it comes to understanding and empathy, I've been right there with you, and understand all aspects of this.
Richard,
yeah.
sorry, quick question. You mentioned a YouTube channel. I'm just not familiar with what the channel is.
Okay, see if you can put that into the chat so everybody know, and then that would be great. And happy to provide that. And of course, just at the last slide, by the way, there'll be my email address. Anyone feel free, email me anytime if there's anything that gets missed, any questions, what have you. So we're talking about data. Any data that I provide is based on the 34 years that I've been doing this, and as well dealing with tens of thousands of business buyers. The materials that we referenced during parts of the webinar, that a lot of you follow already, that was based on full years of research, and subsequent to that, really, I hate to use the word literally because everybody uses it way too frequently, and like literally almost has become figuratively, but literally with tens of thousands of business buyers. And so when this information, absorbing this data, is very important for you to understand. And one of the most important pieces of information is that over 90% of the people who begin the search to buy a business never complete a transaction. The number is actually 94%. And it's a ridiculous, awful, abysmal data point. And it's so easy to avoid. And in addition to that, the average person spends 18 months looking to buy a business and never completes a transaction. Other data points that are very important to understand on the generic business for sale websites, like BizBuySell, businessesforsale.com, BizQuest, the generic businessesforsale.com that are by and large controlled by business brokers who only sell 10% of all businesses in America. On those websites, 75% of the businesses never sell. And so if you go back to some of the prior webinars that we talk about how you adjust and pivot your thinking and your search process. And also in the lower market, 50% of the deals that get agreed to fall apart in due diligence. And so what's very important to understand, if you're going into a project and 90% of the people that go into the project like you fail, you can't do what they're doing. I mean, you have to do something completely different because what they're doing does not work. So it makes no sense whatsoever to do what everybody else is doing. And so the information that I provide provides, I don't think it's necessarily a different path. It's just the proper path and what you need to do along the way to get down the road. My goal with all my clients and with everybody on this call is for you to buy a good business within 6 months. It's doable. 82% of our clients who use our materials and use our consulting, which we'll talk about later, because this is not an infomercial for our product. This is an educational session. They buy a business within 6 months. And so, because they do it a different way, which is really the right way. And it's simple. Today, for you guys to get the most out of today, there's a few points that I go over all the time, which is you've got to be open-minded. If you've never done this before, you don't have a wealth of experience buying businesses, you have to adopt a I know nothing attitude. Be open-minded and recognize that you you really don't know anything about this. You may have a bit of idea, you may have some preconceived notions, but you have no hard skills related to it or expertise. So be open-minded and have this. I'm going in there like you know, what they say, a tabula rasa in Latin, a blank slate with all of this, and I know nothing. And you have to begin at the beginning. In America, during the course of your 15 million people will look to buy a business. And so there's pretty fierce competition. And a lot of those people, as we know from the data, won't ever buy one. But you have to differentiate yourself. And we're going to show you how to do that as well today. And one thing to keep in mind is brokers and sellers don't care about your education. I know that a lot of people who join these calls come from Search Funder, and there's some incredibly educated people on that platform, and it's admirable. I never went to university, so I admire you guys more, and in some ways I admire you less. But you know, I never had the opportunity to have the education that you guys had, and I'm not asking you for a sob story. It's not the point of that. It's to explain to you that what you learned through your formalized education doesn't conjugate with buying a business. There's nothing you've learned that's going to outline the process for you at how it has to be done. Certain pieces of it will help, but this is a very different process. So learn this process and how to do this, and keep that unique and separate from your formalized education. And of course, buyers and sellers don't care about your background. They just want to find out if you can get to the finish line. So my strategies, they're simple, they're blunt, they're effective. I like to work on a building block module where you can go step by step. There's 23 steps in the business buying process, from step number 1, thinking about this and why even buy a business, to post-purchase priorities, and 21 steps in between that. And so I like to talk about a building block format to go through this journey. There's going to be obstacles and pivots and what have you, but you go from one stage to the other and do so effectively. I deal in the real world. And the catalyst for me to start having done all these webinars is that the internet is loaded with garbage information, misinformation, misleading information, inaccurate information. And Mohammed and I, at the beginning, before anybody was on, him and I started talking about some of this. I deal in reality, no BS. Like, talk about no money down buying businesses. I don't sell you boot camps. I don't sell you mastermind groups and insider groups for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. That's not how I operate. I breathe oxygen from this planet. Some of the things that I'll tell you are pretty are straightforward and blunt. And there's a few of you on this call that we spent 3 days together. You know, the way I approach things is just in a simple, no nonsense, no BS world, and all of that other information that's all over the internet is just complete BS. I believe in buying rock solid, good businesses, not great businesses, good businesses that can grow with you at the helm. And I'm not a guy who believes in buying distressed businesses or businesses with ridiculous deal terms that some people profess that you can get, because those are all garbage businesses. And you don't want to buy a distressed business, because it's going to bring you nothing but stress and heartburn. We talk about buying rock solid, good businesses that you can take over, get the keys on Monday, take a paycheck on Friday, and build. Today's topic, we're going to talk about preparing to meet the seller, and the initial review that you have to do and how you proceed along the way. And this is a really critical step as to how you get prepared for the seller. And there's the second part of this is meeting the seller. Okay. And what you have to do, your initial review, preparing for the seller meeting, and during the seller meeting. And we're also going to break that down into publicly listed businesses for sale and off-market deals, because off-market deals are an entirely different approach. And so they're very attractive if you can generate them, but you have to approach them completely different. So we're gonna really dig into that, and you'll have a really good understanding. 2 other items that I want to talk to you about is when you're dealing with brokers, and this came up this week with a couple of brokers that I was talking about, my own personal experience and a couple of calls that we had. When you get information from brokers, and you go down the road a little bit, and you get the NDA and the deck or whatever. If there's no interest on your part, let them know. One of the things that came up from conversation this week with a number of brokers we were talking about how many people just sort of, I guess the term is ghost them. Just say, I'm not interested. and that's it. Move on. But because you want at least for them to keep you in mind, and it's professionalism, and it's just an extent of common courtesy. The second thing is what I want to talk about is, and said how, some of the information that you find online, and a lot of it is real nonsense. And a lot of you are on Search Funder, and I think it's an absolutely phenomenal platform, but you got to pay attention to the people who give you feedback and information. If they're not experts in the field, if they haven't done it multiple times, you can't pay attention to the information because it's just hearsay, conjecture, or speculation. And I stopped answering some of these posts because some of the answers back were so ridiculous. And one thing that I saw a number of posts this week was related to someone questioning, and then I think it was like 90 something people weighed in regarding personal guarantees. This is not related to today's topic, but it jumped out at me, and I want to share this with you because the question was related to I would be very interested in reading about deals that are structured with equity seller notes, whatever, and no personal guarantees. And everybody started to jump in. So let me set the record straight for all of you how the world works in buying businesses. Every one of you, if you get a lender outside of your friends, family, or your parents, you're going to have to provide a personal guarantee, and there's no escaping that. Okay. And maybe even with your parents, you're going to need a personal guarantee. Maybe if you have a loan shark, you won't have to, but you're going to have to provide a personal guarantee. It's the extent of the guarantee that differs. So with a seller note, you are going to have to provide a personal guarantee, but the collateral that you're going to provide is the assets of the business. So it's a personal guarantee with a promissory note, and you're not pledging personal security or collateral. If you do a traditional or an SBA loan, it's personal guarantee, and more often than not, it's going to be collateral. And we have Deb Curtis on this call; she could weigh in. But by and large, you're going to probably have to collateralize the loan. Part of the answer that was given back to this individual was, you guys are complicating the conversation. All you need to do is bring your deal to a bank, a strong deal, stand on its own, be clear with the bank, no guarantees, no securities of any kind. And that means you may have to talk to 100 banks or more to find that we're willing to do it for you. It's not going to happen. That's nonsense information. That's terrible guidance. Take information from people who know what they're doing. And I hate to sound so harsh, but the one thing that here is you're not going to have to go meet with 100 banks. You're going to have to go meet with 1,000. And you may have to meet with 10,000. And by the time, if you happen to be lucky enough to find one bank that's going to lend you money on a business and you have no track record without a personal guarantee, by the time you find that bank, that deal is already over. And so just get that out of your mind. That's part of being an entrepreneur. You want to mitigate the risk, of course, and there's ways to do it, but a personal guarantee is going to be required. And the only people who don't give personal guarantees are institutional investors like private equity firms, family offices, or people on this call, or people like myself who may have bought multiple businesses if I get a financial institution. And even then, it's not guaranteed. Okay, so we set some of the records straight to get rid of some of the noise. Let's jump in and talk about preparing for and meeting with the seller. Okay, so preparing for and meeting with the seller, we talked about there's going to be two scenarios: businesses publicly listed for sale and off-market deals that are generated by referral or direct solicitation. Much of the pre-meeting preparation is the same, but your approach to the actual to the meeting with a seller is going to be the polar opposite. Okay, and so very important to understand these are two unique scenarios, and you have to approach them as such. Okay. The industry standard for this business buying process. So guess what? There's no standardization. And if anybody has spent any time going through this process, you will understand that the information that you receive, whether it be from brokers, sellers, people with off-market deals, the information you receive will be all over the place. Some have brokers, some don't. Some sellers are prepared, some aren't. Some sellers and brokers will provide you with detailed information and financials. Some won't provide any. Some will want to meet, others, no way. So the attitude that you have to have is don't get into the weeds related to the standardization, because there isn't any. Just go with the flow. It's all good. Whatever that deal dictates, you just have to navigate your way around. So the first contact with sellers or broker for publicly listed businesses for sale. And these are ones that we talk about on the public websites or Axial or PitchBook or whatever. The only three things that you want to submit when you or state when you send in an inquiry, because oftentimes there's a generic form that you use, these are the three things. Number one, I'm interested in learning more about this business. Number two, I have the resources to complete a transaction. And number three, please send me the NDA as soon as possible so we can discuss this business further. Understand, any publicly listed business for sale, if it has any type of decent attributes to it, that broker, that seller is going to be bombarded with inquiries. Okay. And to give you an idea, I do some sell side representation. I've had over the years some inquiries such as initial inquiry. Please send me the tax returns. I don't even know who this person is. Please send me the tax return. Or can you send me the company name and location? And I see Arsini, I think I will pronounce it properly, is laughing. Please send me the tax return. Please send me the business name and the location. Okay. How much is the seller willing to finance? Are they willing to accept? And they name a price in the inquiry. God, don't do that. That's never going to get you to the next step. Those are the only three things. And again, all this, we're going to post this video after. So if you don't feel like taking notes, this will be there. Some online databases have a timeline field where they want a little bit more information about you. I'm sure you've seen them where they say, what is your timeline for buying? 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6, etc. Your answer for all of this is immediately. Okay, always zero yesterday, if that's an option. And what you're going to receive initially, you want to execute the NDA to get the information moving along. You may get a listing sheet, then a teaser, then a deck, or any version thereof. Again, it doesn't matter because the standardization, there isn't any. And so you just work with what you get. Depending on deal size, there may or may not be a deck after the NDA. And if there's any interest at all on your part, pursue it. Here we go. Next slide, please. Step one, the initial review and what to do. This is typically for businesses publicly listed. Get the full legal name of the business, and I'll explain to you why in a minute, why that's important. Get the exact industry in which they operate. For example, if it's a paving company, you want to find out, is it commercial? Is it residential? Is it industrial? Do they do additional services like parking lot cleaning, that type of thing? Really drill down to the business, because as you start to search for industry information, you want to be able to have that granularity. And especially if you get dig deeper into SIC codes and what have you, it's important to have that. You want to review the deck and assemble your questions if applicable. And I know a bunch of you this week, we went over lots of decks from different companies and had some questions back and forth, and we came up with some really good strategies. Review the deck, assemble your questions, don't over-index, but if there's any major problems, get them clarified. You know, if you see customer concentration or lease expiration or key skills or licenses that are listed to operate the business, find out the condition of the books and records, just those high-level, really important items. If the interest remains, arrange to meet with the seller. And now you may need a broker call first, but as we talked about on prior sessions together, meeting face-to-face with the seller is everything. You don't want to spend your days talking with brokers or having emails back and forth. Nothing replaces face-to-face meeting with the sellers, as many as possible, because this is a funnel, this whole process. You got a lot of stuff at the top in each one of these steps, and you got to squeeze it down to a very narrow focused search and acquisition. Preparing for the seller meeting, for the preliminary search. You have two goals. You want to find out if there's any glaring issues, and you want to learn enough to impress the seller, but not be a smartass. People appreciate preparedness and humbleness. So you want to be able to, when you ultimately meet with the seller, have enough information to be dangerous. You want to have enough information so that you can talk reasonably with them without coming across like you know everything. You're building your knowledge base. Getting lost online. And this is a really good thing. And again, this isn't the preliminary piece. You haven't even set up a seller meeting or anything of that nature. You want to find out the owner or owners' names, the legal entity. You're going to start to search to see, and we're going to go through some searching in a second, to see if there's any lawsuits or employee complaints. Lawsuits about the business. And then this is just easy to done on Google, where you enter the legal entity and you'll find out if there's anything of that nature. You want to potentially go onto LinkedIn, but I caution you to be very careful, because depending on the nature of the account, the individual can see who searched their profile. And if you have a broker who's representing a seller, that seller doesn't even know if you exist yet, because your conversation may have only been with the broker. So if you have the individual's name and you go into LinkedIn, imagine the seller, they don't even know who you are. They start looking you up. It just raises some concern potentially. So you have to just be very cautious. They start calling the broker, who's this individual? They're listed as a searcher or business buyer. Do you have an NDA for them? So LinkedIn is something that once the introduction is made, typically would go back and do that, but you just got to be very cautious. Reviews, if you're looking at business reviews or Glassdoor, be very open-minded about what you read, especially on Glassdoor. You know, disgruntled employees, they may be right, they may not be right, but there's not a whole lot of value in what they have to say. You may want to get a bit of an idea through some of these, but don't let these things formulate your opinion. You want to build your own resource list, which includes trade associations, industry consultants. When you look up trade associations and their websites, they will typically have a list of consultants in the industry. And so you should keep a record of those, because you may want to bounce some questions off of them. You may want to hire them. They may be the believable party for what you're looking for. And so that's where it's a good place to find them. You want to search for other like transactions, trade show dates, industry news, and private equity activity in the industry. When there is a lot of private equity activity in the industry, you have to be prepared that sometimes those push up the multiples for no good reason. Okay, I'm going to do a screen share here to show you this next thing, to talk about certain things that you want to search for if you find a particular business. And I think I can figure this out here. Okay, I hope everybody can give me a thumbs up. Tell me if you can see my screen. Good. Okay, so when we go back to some of the key questions, there's 5 or 6 on that last screen, and again, we'll go back to them afterwards. But a few of them, let's say you're looking to buy a commercial cleaning business, one in particular. I'm going to give you some search phrases that have proven to be very, very effective. So one of the first one is entering something like, what are the biggest problems with commercial cleaning businesses? And the reason why you want to find this out is because when you sit down in front of the seller, you want to ask him or her about these particular situations. Do you find certain things like this? So at the top, they'll typically list a good list of generic issues: janitorial turnover, inadequate training, health concerns, inadequate customer service. Very good. But then if you start scrolling down and drill into some of these, like here's Tennant Company that put out a whole challenges and opportunity facing cleaning businesses. And if you go into this one, sorry, website temporarily unavailable, or you go into janitorial store, they list, look at this, every challenge, all in their opinion: attracting and keeping talent, maintaining profitability, complex and ever-changing regulations, and on it goes. And then what happens is, I actually looked before at this one Tennant Company. There was if you did a Venn diagram, there's usually like 3-4 things that are common to the industry. And so you'd be able to ask those questions or keep those in mind when you speak to the seller. Certain keyword, another one here is what are recent trends in the commercial cleaning industry? And we'll go back to the main list after, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea. And here's another one. Here's Aspire, which has a whole report on 2024 commercial cleaning industry trends and reports. And you'll see this for any type of business for the most part. And so if you go on to this one, again, a whole report, summary of the findings, key findings. This is the way you start to build your knowledge base. And so when you talk to the seller, you're able to bring up some of these questions and issues. Now, if you get the name of the entity of the company, no matter where you are located. And I can't speak for Europe, and I know we have a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot, a fair number of people on this call from overseas. In the United States, every state has a Department of State, a Department of Commerce, state business website. And so you can search the records. That's why you need the legal entity name. And the reason why I do this, I'm going to give you an example to show you in Florida. Does everybody see sunbiz.org? Okay, so this is the Florida one. So if you go into the search records area and you click on the name, and I picked up one here, commercial cleaning care, which is in Florida. You could list all the ones might have similar names, but this is an active one. This is the one I'm looking at. This is the business I'm looking at. Okay. And I click on this. And what I want to look for is to make sure all the records are clear, current, to see when they were formed. But the big thing that I want to look at here is who the members or managers are. Because if there's more than one, there may be partners. There may be a partner problem. There may be a partner who's a silent partner. And I'm going to give you an example after a terrible mistake I made in one of the deals that I was looking at, where had I done this, I would have saved myself a whole lot of heartburn. But it gives you, lets you know how many people are involved in membership, management, ownership, or what have you related to the business. Okay. And so you've searched the legal entity and some of those key questions. I'm going to stop the sharing. So what do I need to know about buying a commercial cleaning business? Is commercial cleaning a good business? Biggest problems we talked about. What's the value of a commercial cleaning business? Now, I don't believe in rules of thumb, but it gives you some parameters and you'll find out who's in it. Do any private equity firms own those type of businesses? And the last question are, what are the recent trends in the industry? So I'm going to go through those 5 questions again, which are, what do I need to know about buying a commercial cleaning business? Is commercial cleaning a good business? Biggest problems, what the value of a commercial cleaning business is. Do any private equity firms own any of those companies? And what are the recent trends in the industry? I'll go on to the next slide, talk about these because this is straightforward, is related to the competition when you want to investigate them. And again, this is preliminary. You haven't met with the seller yet. You're just working on the initial information that you get. So getting information on competition sometimes is a bit of a crapshoot. And so you want to be able to, you're typically going to get the best information subsequent to multiple seller meetings to really understand. But if it's not mentioned in the deck, you can ask the broker. A good deck from a broker should list out the competition, but it may not. Okay, so don't get too worried if you don't have a lot of competition, competitive information. That will come. I mean, of course, if it's a specialized business, it'll be much easier to obtain that information. But not necessarily if it's a business where it makes sense that you can drive by or go to visit, where they, public goes to shop there. It's a plumbing supply store or something along those lines, or something related to retail. You can go visit, great. But you got to be discreet when you go in, and of course not talk to any employees, but you might want to do a drive-by and see what that looks like. So preparing for the seller meeting, you're going to organize your research into the following: outstanding questions from the deck or the sim, whatever they've provided for you. Put that into, those are one category. Then you're going to have questions that are generated from your initial research: the number of owners, the competition, industry trends, common issues facing these types of businesses, etc. And your research about the industry should always be presented when you speak to a seller. If you find out any information, when you talk to a seller, you want to say to them, based on what I've learned, here's what I'd like your comments on. It's never coming. You've got some basic information, but you're by no means an expert, and you don't want to ever put them on their, put them into feeling defensively. And so it's just based on what I've heard. And then we're going to talk about the 36 key questions that you must ask every seller. The seller meeting and why you want to do this in person. This is really important. In-person meetings whenever possible. Calls via Zoom are a last resort. Okay. You want to meet as many sellers face-to-face as possible. And some of the numbers that we talked about, you got to potentially meet 30 or 40 sellers, but face-to-face. And why you do that is you can see the business in action and know what to look for. Is it clean? Are people looking leery? Is it buzzing? Are there interruptions? One of the things that, interesting, you sit with a seller and you're having these conversations, and one after the other, employees are coming in, or they're texting him or calling him or what have you, or he's answering, or she is answering emails, and there's these constant interruptions. Well, the first thing that you got to think of is this business cannot operate without this seller. Okay, or these employees are not capable of making the most minor decision without running something by the seller. The seller may be a micromanager. He or she may have hired the wrong people, but for whatever reason, those are the cues that you want to be able to take. And you really get a feel for the business that you could only get in person. It's easier to establish a cordial and conversational environment versus on the phone. There's no chit chat. You have any of these Zoom calls, they go right into business versus, you're sitting in someone's office. If you were sitting in my home office today and we're having a conversation, you might look around and say, oh, what is that? Is that or Sia says, is that a Chicago Bears jersey? And I said, no, that's a Montreal Canadiens jersey. Oh, you're a big hockey fan, etc. So your conversation goes to good places. And you can't do that on a Zoom call. And I like what I call look them in the eye theory, which is when you're having a conversation with someone and you can look them straight forward and talk to them, and you see if they're looking aside, if they're futzing around with their papers or what have you. It's just that connection that you're able to establish. And it's so important to have that relationship with someone versus coming across as a bull in a china shop. Because if you can get that relationship going, I mean, that changes the whole dynamic of this entire journey, guys. Okay. Course, another thing is it demonstrates you're serious. You can read the seller's body language. You can determine who answers the question. You're sitting there with the seller and their broker, and every time you ask the seller a question, his or her broker jumps in with the answer. And so it's like, hey, wait a minute, like I got to put the end to this. Why can't they answer the question? Are they being coached? Is there something behind this? So those are only things that you can see in person. Okay. What if it's not local? And you have a business that's 3 hours away? Well, you may have to do a little more prep, may necessitate an initial call, but nothing beats in-person meetings or demonstrates your seriousness like face-to-face. And if you go back and watch some of the prior educational sessions, we talked about how often you have meetings with sellers. You may not buy their business, but something comes up in that conversation that leads you to thinking about something else. And in your research, you find something else. I was looking at translation businesses. I really wanted to acquire them and potentially do a roll up. I met with a couple of owners, and one of them said related to a potential service that they were looking to add on was related to legal document preparation, and they were nowhere near what they were thinking about doing. But I started looking at that industry as well, and I actually ended up buying a business in the legal document preparation business. Had I never gone to that seller meeting, I never would have wound up in that business. And it's only as a result of a conversation that took me on a journey of investigation that I found this whole other industry that was fascinating and turned out to be a darn good business. If you get the broker gatekeeper and they tell you there's no need to meet in person, well, your answer to them is as follows and wrote, I'm serious about this business and I want to move quickly. That's music to a broker's ear. Let's meet in person and get this covered so we could move the deal ahead. So what's the tactic and goal of a meeting with a seller? You want to learn more about the business so you can decide whether to proceed or drop it. You want to acquire enough information to continue your analysis. The most important things to accomplish in the meetings are get the relationship off to a great start. You want to have casual and meaningful conversations. Okay, you need to establish that connection. Now, it's not going to happen with everyone, but it will happen with a lot. And that, as we talked about earlier, can change the dynamic, and more than anything else, really improves your positioning. Remember, there's a lot of people looking for businesses, and you want to impress the seller. And why? Well, if you impress the seller as the individual who A, is serious, B, can get the deal done, C, be the person that potentially protects their legacy. Once you impress the seller, the deal terms, you're going to figure out a way to get a deal done. So you want to impress them that you're the ideal candidate to operate this business. And that can only be done in person. But those, again, are your goals. When you establish a good relation, again, makes the entire process more enjoyable, and it allows for critical issues to be resolved. There's going to be stuff that comes up that's unavoidable, that may be big. It could be stuff that's you don't think it's very important, and the seller thinks that it's the most important thing in the deal. And if you have a reasonable, good relationship with them, you can talk about it without having to involve attorneys and accountants and broker. You can just be transparent up front and get it done. And it gets the seller's guard down. The post-meeting self-test. After you finish a meeting with a seller, there's 4 questions you need to ask yourself. Do I like the seller? Do I trust them? Do I like the business? And can I see myself running it? If your answer is not a resounding yes to all 4 of these things, take my word, move on. You're not going to get a deal done. If for any of those reasons you don't get that sense and feel very positive about it afterwards, it's time to move on. Off-market deals. There's a lot, we have a lot of content related to this, and a lot of you are looking for off-market deals. And so before we get into some of the slides, I have some notes here because it's really important to convey. These are the holy grail of deals, and most of the people that have been on this call for talked about it is the idea of generating some of these deals. And again, they can be the holy grail because you have no competition. And so if you're lucky enough to nail down a business owner who's considering the conversation with you, who doesn't have their business publicly listed for sale, all I'm going to tell you is don't screw it up. Okay, this is a different dynamic, and this is something that can be unbelievable for you. Okay, so it takes a lot of time, it takes effort, and it takes money to find these deals. Very often you're spending money on lists and what have you. So be mindful of that and treat this with kid gloves. Every buyer from Main Street to Wall Street wants these opportunities, and they're a huge part of the searcher mentality. You pay attention because this is going to require a different methodology. And if you don't listen to me, I promise you, you are going to regret it. And I'm not trying to be someone who's giving you idle threats. I just want to impose upon you the importance of this and dealing with it in this way. So the only three things to say: you've sent out a direct solicitation, or you've got an introduction or a referral from an accountant, an attorney, or however you've arrived at having that initial conversation to this individual business owner who's thinking about potentially selling or is intrigued by the thought, and you get on the phone call for them. These only three things to state are the following: is you appreciate their response and express your interest. You give them a brief bio of what you're looking for. And then you tell them, I have some questions, but I want you to feel completely comfortable. And I'm happy to sign an NDA and set up a time to speak again. You want to have an NDA ready, okay, that you can send them. You make it benign, or tell the seller, you can use yours, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, whatever makes you feel most comfortable. Again, you're having this conversation. This is all brand new to them. Okay. When they made that phone call, they didn't have any idea what's at the other end. So you want to make them feel 100% comfortable initially. And of course, always, but certainly at the beginning, you want to have your initial questions ready in case they may say to you, look, no, it's no problem. You can ask me a couple questions. If it's something I'm not comfortable answering, I'm not going to answer it. So in this case, before you ask them your question, ask them if there's anything they'd like to ask you. And you're going to see a reason why in publicly listed businesses for sale, you must ask your questions first. In these scenarios, you give the owner the opportunity to ask their question first, because again, you want them to feel completely comfortable, and explain to you in a minute why. So your basic questions: tell me a little bit about your business, its history, and why you may consider selling. If the conversation goes okay or well, ask to set up everybody together an in-person meeting. Right? Be ready for their questions. They typically want to know, do you have the money to get a deal done? If you're using a broker, and they want to be sure they won't waste their time. Then if you get into, they may, say to you, if you talk to them, or you're thinking about selling, and they'll say to you, well, of course, for the right price, any business, of course, my business is for sale. Don't be deterred by that. Even though they all have unrealistic expectations, but disregard, don't even get into the weeds of that point of the conversation. And here's are the most important strategies for off-market seller meetings. The only goal is to establish trust and credibility. If you guys have seen some of our videos, one of them recently was with Mike Miller from Regenerative Capital Group, and him and his partner purchased our course 20 years ago. It's had tons of updates, but they bought multiple businesses, smaller businesses. They built them up to over $200 million revenue, sold it out for over $100 million. And they refer to the Bible, but they always talk about these 36 key questions we have in there, and they still follow them. And it's critically important, and it's a foundation to the material provide. And here's what I'm going to tell you. In these situations, all your questions can wait. Every one of them. Don't worry about having to ask your questions in our off-market deals until the time is right. So you don't put any pressure on them. You just want meaningful conversations with the owner. And the best meeting that you have with the seller face-to-face may be the meeting where you don't ask a single one of your questions. Don't worry about it. Okay? Hopefully that was loud and clear, loud and clear. If you demonstrate, if you don't demonstrate that you can manage the process, here's what's going to happen. Keep in mind, you got two people that don't know anything about this process, no brokers involved, whatever. If you don't demonstrate to the seller that you, the buyer, can market the conversation, can market this whole process, manage this process, is the seller calls their lawyer and their accountant and he said, hey, someone approached me about buying my business. They're going to tell them, you should speak to a broker or banker before you have any further conversations. Or their accountant, their attorney is going to say, hey, don't you want to know what other options you have? Or have a referral for a person we use for, that a business broker, intermediary. You should get in touch with them. Now gets worse, right? The broker calls the seller and says, hey, wait a minute. Do not go any further with these people. Let's package up the business, we'll bring it to market, and we'll create an auction. Now, this owner that you had a conversation with initially, who may not even thought about selling their business until they got your solicitation or an introduction, whatever, now they're going down a whole different road. And you, by and large, are completely out of the equation. When this scenario unfolds, it's like I say, poof, you are done. Okay. And you may not even ever speak to them again. So at the same time, no matter what you do, some of this could happen. So that's why it's critically important to build the relationship and let them know that that you understand this process and you can help them. You can help them manage this process and you know enough about it. If not, they are going to go down a wrong road and you'll probably lose the opportunity completely. So let's talk about the meeting the seller for off-market deals. You want to have your detailed preparation, and it may come before or after the meeting. The owner isn't sure about a couple of things. Keep in mind, do they even want to sell the company? Do they want to sell it to you? How it all works and what to do next. The buyer, you as a buyer, you're probably not even sure as well. And so this process is 100% up to you to do the following. You have got to take the lead in this conversation. Because again, you don't want them running to their attorney or accountant because you're going to more than likely lose the deal. And so you have to maintain control of this conversation and interaction, or else it's going to go out of control or go nowhere. And so you need to have a very good understanding of the steps in the process, what's needed to be done, what's not needed to be done, and help guide the seller in all aspects. Now, I know that sounds like a big ask, but I promise you it's doable, okay? Because we're not talking about anything overwhelming here. You just want to make sure that they feel comfortable that they can have these conversations with you without having to jump in and, hire a broker or bring in their attorney for every single question. You have to demonstrate that you understand the process. And these deals alone are the reason why your education has to be ramped up related to understanding the steps in the process. Because what you've got a seller who's never done this before and a buyer who's never done this before. And between the two of you, you're very dangerous. And so figuring out how to get that done and having those conversations and providing them with the comfort that they will know that you're like the Sherpa in this deal. Okay, and you can help guide them without coming across as a smart ass or anything of that nature, but you can effectively guide them and help them through the process. Okay, and so remember, there's two parties that don't know much, and so if you have to manage this in the way that you first, no pressure, even if there's no questions. You make sure that you establish this meaningful relationship with them and you start to move forward, because they're deals that they could be such phenomenal opportunities and they're so easy to blow. Okay, so I know it's a big ask, but I promise you it's manageable. You just have to deal with this in a good practical way and make the seller feel comfortable. Imagine, compare and contrast that. You go in there like a bull in a china shop. Seller calls you up and says, yeah, my attorney so-and-so, or I got your letter, I'm thinking of selling. And you right away start talking about, how many years in business? Are your sales up and down? What are your biggest challenges related to the business? Tell me about some of your key employees, whatever. So it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, this is all new to me. I'm not answering any of those questions. Versus compare and contrast that with, I appreciate your call. I just want to let you know, if you feel more comfortable, happy to sign an NDA, anything that'll make you feel more comfortable. We can get back on the phone. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask them, and I'd love to get together and meet with you. Compare and contrast that with the first party. At least you get out of the gate and you get down the road properly with that individual. Okay. Let's talk about your seller questions, do's and don'ts, when you're getting into your seller meetings. And this is going to be the next part. So now, once you've established whether it's a publicly listed business for sale or an off-market deal, you're going to have to get prepared for your seller meeting and the questions you need to ask. And we're going to go into those in a moment. So when you have your seller meeting finally, here's why you need to ask your questions first. Even though we talked about in these off-market deals, you give them the opportunity to ask the questions. Now you've gone down the road to them, and both of these scenarios are equal. You've established a good relationship, and now you're sitting in front of a seller with your actual questions. And if this is your first or second time meeting with a seller in an off-market deal, you may not be asking any questions. But when it gets to the point of asking the detailed questions, you need to ask your questions first. If not, they are going to tailor their answers to you. They start asking your questions first, and they say to you, tell me a little bit about your background, your strengths and your weaknesses. And see one name here, Dan's on the call, and Dan says, well, I've been in logistics for 22 years, and I've been in operational positions, and my strengths are bringing a team together and managing a project. And then when you get to your question, you have to ask them, what's the ideal candidate to manage this business? And the seller's going to tell you, oh, ideally, it's someone who's been in logistics, who's had multiple years in logistics and can manage a team and put a plan together. They are going to tailor their answer for you. So you've got to ask your questions first. Number two, if you want to take notes, that's fine. Ask the seller for permission. Say it's okay to take notes. Do not sit in front of them with a laptop. Okay. The thing that's most irritating for guys of my age and people of my age that are majority of sellers that you're going to come across, because we're all the baby boomers and this alleged silver tsunami that's coming, is we don't take notes, by and large, sitting there on laptops all day long, where a lot of us are old school. And so sitting there in front of a laptop is very impersonal. When you're sitting in front of a meeting, take notes, but don't sit in there with a computer or a tablet or your phone. And if you're unsure how to take notes, just sit there and listen. Ideal, if you're taking notes, ask or any questions that need further investigation. Provide your follow-up questions if you're unclear. And if they have a broker who does all the talking, put an end to it. Right there at the meeting, doesn't matter if you piss everybody off. Because if the seller isn't capable of answering the questions without the broker weighing in on every single thing, there's no way they're going to get a deal done anyway with anybody. Okay. So if you ask the seller a question and then he or she immediately defers to the broker, an answer, just give a timeout. Say, guys, I appreciate it. And if you're unsure, I understand it. Or if there's anything that I'm asking you that you're not comfortable in answering, there's no problem. You don't have to answer it. But I came to this meeting to meet with them. Okay. And that's the individual that I want to ask my question. So if you think that may be hard for you to do, get used to it, because you need to do it. If there are multiple owners and not all intend, confirm who has the authority to sign off on a deal. You remember we looked at that sunbiz.org and we saw 2 owners? Well, you go and meet the seller and it had 2 people on there, and guess what? Only one of them is at the meeting. And you say to them, who are the owners? Are you the only owner of the business? And they say, yeah, I'm the only owner. Say, I apologize. When I was looking up the legal entity, I saw there were 2 owners here, and I see there was you and there was, it shows Natalie Sanchez. Oh, yeah. Natalie's an owner, but she's a silent partner. Well, that just changed the whole scenario, because they may be a silent partner, but if you go too far down the deal and don't speak to Natalie, you might find out that Natalie's not so silent altogether. Okay. And they play a role. They may have to sign off on this. So you need to find out quickly and immediately who the ownership is, how involved they are. I once went so far down the road with someone, and they told me that their partner, was sign off and everything, and they were just a small partner, whatever. And we got to the near crunch, and then I find out they said, well, I got to get my partner to approve this. And I lost the deal, and everything got undone, and I wasted a ridiculous amount of time. And so I can tell you from my own personal experience, you got to get all owners at the table, or at least at this initial meeting, if there is a secondary owner, you'll confirm that they will put it in writing that the individual you're dealing with has the authority to sell the business. And you make sure they have the authority between the two of them and legally. Okay, let's talk about some of the seller questions. And I want to explain to you the procedure by which you need to go about doing this and how you have to understand, because it's not just a matter of asking questions. It's a matter of asking questions, knowing what the answers to look for, and having the right follow-up questions. So I'm going to give you an example. And if I can pull this up on my screen share. Do you see this Word document? Everybody see that? Okay, I'm going to scroll down. This is one of the lessons. Thank you. Thank you, sir. This is one of the lessons. I can't see everybody, so I apologize. And see, I'm not sure if we can scroll through who's sitting on the call, if there was, but I want to show you how this is positioned. The importance of this. This is directly from our course, but the most important thing is for you to understand the thought process of how you go about your questions answered. So here's a question: why are you selling the business, and what are the real reasons? So one of the things, if they tell you one of the reasons is their boredom or business needs new blood or whatever, obviously that's a warning sign and a clear red flag. But here's the reasons that they will typically give you: retirement or illness or boredom or new opportunity, or they're cashing out, or a divorce or a partner issue or relocation. So when they say to you, well, I'm going to retire, well, you don't just leave it at that. Okay. Oh, congratulations, you're retiring. No, you find out, what are you planning to do? Will you be staying in this area? And why do you want to know that? Well, you're going to need them for a transition period. What if you need them for consulting afterwards? What if they say they're retiring, but they're moving to another business and another area, and they're going to open up the same business in the other area? Are you looking forward to it? Do you think you'll miss the business? Sort of general questions. But I had one situation, I was looking at a business and talking about retirement. And he said, well, I'm going to retire. And it could have been very easy to say, okay, and I leave it at that. And he said, okay, where are you staying in the area? Oh, no, we're actually moving to North Carolina. Oh, really? When are you moving? And this, I think, was like in May, June, something along that line. He said, well, after Labor Day. And I said, really? Wow, that's pretty quick. I said, what happens if you don't sell the business? Now I'm thinking, as I asked this question, he's going to say, well, if I don't sell the business, I'll stay here. And then he said, oh, no, my wife made it very clear. Labor Day, we're moving. Say, the second I have this business with a serious buyer under LOI, he said, I'm putting my house up for sale. I said, oh, good. I'm going to keep that in mind. And so the second that I was considering putting it under LOI, I said to him, look, I'm thinking about coming to you with a contract. And I have a couple of questions, and I want to move expeditiously. And don't you know his house in South Florida was on the market the next day? So I knew I had a window of 90 days. I figured I'll have to figure out how I'm going to get them to train me, because there was some training required. But I took 25% off the purchase price. And I said, I'll close by August 15th. 2 months. Had a lot to do, but I figured if I work like a maniac, I can get it all done. And there was used to my advantage. Now, flip side of that, if there was a business that required a lot of training and I needed to sell her there for 3 months and a year of consulting, this wouldn't have worked. So it's the follow-up questions. If they say that your answer, oh, I'm just bored with the business. Well, what is it that business doesn't provide for you? Is it simply that you have been doing this too long? If the business is so good, why you not get someone else to run it and split the profits? Every one of the answers that you get, unless it's a binary yes or no, there's follow-up questions. So when you go in with your key questions to ask the seller, don't be satisfied with the answer. Because remember, a seller is called a seller for a reason. They may be kind, they may be nice, they may be trustworthy, they may be empathetic, they may be a solid citizen, but their goal is to sell you their business at the best possible price and terms possible. And you can only listen and hear what they have to say, and you trust and verify everything. Okay. And so that's why you never get satisfied with the single answer. Okay. If they say it's relocation or a divorce or a partnership issue, why don't you buy them out? Do they have shares in the company? What percentage? Very important in divorces. Almost every divorce, when there's something like that, they're going to bring in a professional business appraiser, and they're going to settle out come up with a value of the business. Now the value, the appraiser works for the spouse, the appraiser works for the husband. You're buying the business from the wife. She's operating the business. The husband goes out and hires a professional appraiser, and that appraiser gives the husband a valuation that's 30% more than the price you're willing to pay. All of a sudden, I said, well, if the appraiser said it's that much, I'm going to raise my price to you. So the key is here, you have to answer those follow-up questions. Okay. Here's another example is, what do your customers and competitors say about you? What the business does best? Well, the answer from the owner is typically what he or she believes the customers and competition will say. However, that's usually a very, very camouflage version of what the customers and competition actually say about the business. But it gives you some tremendous insight into how they think about their business, because how the owners, think about their business and what they think they're doing well may be completely different in the eyes of their customer and their competition. You may find out competition doesn't even think that the company you're looking at is even competition. So understanding the follow-up question and say, you ask them, well, what do they think about you? And then they give you this beautiful massaged answer. You say, well, why do they buy from you? Right? Tell me, why do the customers buy from you? There are alternates. So you see if the seller can reduce this to one answer, or at least rank them for the following reasons. Because if they're all over the place, that means they don't really know. And they don't really know their customers. And when you deal in the lower market, you will not believe how many sellers that you're going to come across that really are not in touch with their business. So you need to understand those things, because those are all different levers related to the valuation, related to the due diligence, related to things that you can or can't do going forward with the business. Okay, so let's go back to some of the questions to ask the seller. Could you please tell me about your business? I know this sounds really ridiculous, but I've sat in meetings representing sellers, and I can't believe how often they don't even know. They don't even ask them, tell me about your business. How's your business doing right now? Are sales up, or sales down, or even with last year? And when you ask a question like this, you want them to be able to give you a crisp answer with actual metrics. How's business? Good. I don't even know what that means. How's business? We're grinding away. That's terrific. Could you please explain that? Well, that's entirely different than an answer that you get when someone, we're off like 2.7% this year, but our margins are up. Or our margins are up a little over 1%. So we're really happy about that. And we've got more quotations out this year. Last year at this time, we had 19 quotes out or bids out. And this year we have 31. So we're pretty excited about that. That's someone who knows the metrics of the business. That also transcends into the reporting of the business and the information, the process and seat and procedures. So when we talk about the 36 questions that you need to ask the seller, in the material that we talk about, it's all these things that you need to look for. It's not just the questions. And I apologize, we're not going to go through the 36 questions, because I don't think it's fair to everybody who bought the course, but there's just too much time. I don't want to get the Q&A, but I want to talk about some high level ones. What is the history of the business? And you want to see any ebbs and flows of things that happened over the history, how they got to where they were. One of the other ways that I like to ask this question, you may want to write this one down, is related to the business. Tell me where you were, where you are, and where you're going if this business doesn't sell. And so that will allow them to provide an evolution of the business. What keeps you up at night about the business? Every business owner, God willing, all of you guys will soon find this out. There's always something that provides heartburn and keeps you up at night about the business, whether it be training people, recruiting people. There's always something. Anybody who tells you nothing keeps them up about business is full of crap. If you're a business owner, something always keeps you up at night about the business. And the things that keep the seller up at night about the business, which they allegedly have control of, is going to be magnified to the power of 10 in the eyes of the buyer. So it's something you need to pay attention to, because that seems like a much bigger problem to you because you're not sure how to deal with it. What do you do every day? What is your biggest contribution to the business? This is especially important if you're going to become the owner operator, because in theory, the seller gets up, moves out of their chair, and you take their place. And so you're doing what they're going to be doing. So you want to understand what they do every day and what they contribute to the business. How much vacation do you take? Now, you may be listening to this, say, why would I ask an owner how much vacation they take? I haven't even bought the business yet, and I'm supposed to be telling like I'm thinking about taking vacation, but it's not that at all. Do you want to know the more vacation they take, the more comfort you can have with the staff of the business and the process and the procedures and everything that's in place. I have one client who held him sell the business not too long ago, takes 120 days a year vacation. I mean, how nice is that? Now it's after many, many years, but what it tells you is they have the great people in place. They have processes, procedures. If someone can, you may get an answer that, I haven't taken a vacation in years. I can't, it's hard for me to get away for more than a long weekend, or I like to get away, but I can't do more than a few days at a time. Well, he tells you either a couple of things. One, they're a micromanager, or they have the wrong employees, or they think they're better than they are. But it gives you insight to how that business is managed like this, right? And so you're going to find out as business owners, one of the greatest ways to grow your business is empower employees, but empower the right employees. So they may have the wrong employees, they may have the wrong processes, they may have the wrong systems, or they may have the wrong owner. But either way, that business under its current ownership is being micromanaged. And that's not the way you're going to grow a business. Okay, because you're never going to let people do the right thing. If they're the wrong people, you have to let them go. But when a business is micromanaged, it's very hard to scale. We talked about what the customers and competitors say the business does best. Are there any family members involved in the business? And this is really important because family members either may need to be there, may not need to be there. They may be undercompensated, they may be overcompensated. And if they're undercompensated and they're going to leave, well, you have to deduct that from the seller's discretionary earnings and adjust for their replacement. Similarly, you don't want to just say, well, there's 4 family members, 2 want to stay, 2 want to leave. Well, it may be too difficult to replace those 2 people who want to leave right out of the gate. So understanding the dynamic of the family members is really, really important. And again, are you the sole owner? Are you willing to stay on and train me for longer? And for how long? And what about a consulting term? The one thing I want to tell you related to owner staying, you want a good, effective transition. You want them in place to help you learn the business, but you want to get them the hell out of there as soon as possible. As soon as you feel comfortable with the business. In some businesses, it could take 30 days, some take 6 months, others if you think it's going to take a year for you to learn the business is too difficult for you to buy it. Okay. And so you may want them there as a crutch, as a security blanket to know that they're going to be available. Okay. The key thing is knowing that they're going to be available, but you always want to have the ability to get rid of them at any time. Okay. But knowing how long they are available for that is an important question. To what level can the business be built? When you ask this question, fasten your seatbelts. Because you are going to hear that this business is going to become the next Microsoft. Like, by and large, people are going to go, with the right blood or the new person coming to the business. You can't imagine the level to this business could be built. Well, why haven't you done it? Okay. So take this, as they say, with the proverbial grain of salt. Just take some notes of some of the potential initiatives that they might say, but understand their thinking. And then here's a question that I always like to throw in. Can you elaborate on the balance of sale conditions? And they say, well, what do you mean? Well, your seller note. And they say, well, we didn't say anything about a seller note. Well, I mean, how are you going to sell this business without a seller note? 91% of our clients finance their business through a seller note. Maybe part, not all, and maybe part of it. There may be other financing, but there's seller notes involved. So throw this out there, okay? Because you want to see how they react to a seller note, okay? Because especially today, these are the deals. There's a bridge with these seller notes that's required in almost all cases to get you to the finish line in these deals today because of the higher interest rates. Seller notes, even in the larger deals, PE deals, there's seller notes involved today that never been there before. So throw out this question. When I say throw it out, don't throw it out the window, throw it out to the seller. Describe for me, if you will, the profile of the ideal candidate to take over your business. Again, we talked about this because this is the one they're going to tailor to you if you tell them about yourself first. So if they do ask you about yourself first, you just tell them, just gloss over in a good way. You want to impress them, but you're not giving them the granularity of the details. Who are their main competitors and where can you get additional information on them? And you're also going to have to do your own research regarding the industry. What are the key trade publications and reference materials? Every industry, whether it be digital or print, and most of them are digital now, has a trade industry. You need to know what those are. This is a critical piece of your knowledge base because the information that trade publication can provide is astounding. from trends in the industry to businesses for sale in the industry to consultants in this industry to articles and information. So, this is find out the trade publications and what is their key website, and if there's any trade shows. And if they have, very often they might even have a copy of the publication. Do any of your customers represent more than 10%? And what happens to you? The question, the way I like this is, what happens if you get hit with a Pepsi truck tomorrow? Okay, but the question is, what happens if you disappear tomorrow? What happens to the business? Is there a second in command? Can people take this over? Is the business going to be floundering? It's very important to know. Okay, so there's some of the questions of the 36 key ones that we talked about. I want to get into the Q&A of the material, which I said I wanted to get this by 1:15 so we can have 45 minutes to talk about it. I do want to spend a couple times, give you my unapologetic sales pitch if any of you guys decide to follow our materials. And when I started doing these webinars, and still to this day, my goal is to inform as many people as possible. And so I have a company that does some of our digital marketing that helps, because I film some informational videos and educational videos, and they help post them, whatever. And I said, I want to really start doing some educational stuff related to live and online webinars. And one of the things that they told me was, oh, well, if you do your webinar online, one of the things that you should have is this call to action related to your materials. And the way you do this is you give people this fantastic deal at the end of the session that you're going to give them like 50% off your program to buy your program, whatever. And so here's my offer. I don't give any discounts on our program. Okay. The only incentive that I give you related to the program is it's going to help you buy a business. I provide free consulting along with the materials. You can email me, contact me as often as you want throughout the entire process. I answer my phone. I have emails going back and forth. There's probably 25 people on this call today who have used our consulting, and I'm sure we can't see all of them at once, but maybe we'll bring them up afterwards, and we'll give you the opportunity for those individuals who are there. If you want to show a video, I'm very proud of the consulting we do. And I guarantee you'll buy a good business at a great price. That's my only incentive and call to and action. I'm not going to give you some bull thing that we're selling our program for $1,000 and then discounted. I don't operate that way. We sell our whole program for $200. I see you just grabbed your eyes. Well, I'm not supposed to say that word on a webinar. Is that what it is? I'm okay. You'll have to beep that out. But that's just the way I operate. Hopefully you guys got a sense that I'm straightforward, and I do this. I don't do this. I don't do this to get rich. I made my money long time ago in buying and selling businesses. This is a terrific program. And the other thing is, if you're not happy, this has got a lifetime guarantee. It walks you through the whole process. You got case studies, legal documents, evaluation software program that we developed with over 1,000 deals that were stress tests. And at any point in time between now and forever, as long as I'm alive, if you don't like the material, we'll give you your money back. We sold 100,000 of these, and I got 64 returns in the last 22 years. April 23rd is actually going to be 23 years since we launched this program. It's constantly updated. I promise you, you'll be 10 times smarter about buying a business. And I personally think you got to be out of your mind not to follow it for $197. And that's enough of my sales pitch. You can find it at richardparker.com. There's a /course, but if you go to richardparker.com, at the top, it's hundreds of free articles and reports, but there's a link called courses. You click on how to buy a good business at a great price. All the information is there. It downloads immediately, and you get the entire program and all the consulting. And by the way, it just came up last time, you do not need to buy the due diligence program. We have 2 products on there: how to buy a good business at a great price and the due diligence program. You don't need to buy the due diligence program. It's included with the whole guide. And if any of you want, subsequent to you purchasing it, you need to get on a call and have an initial consulting call together. No problem. Just let me know. Send me an email. We'll jump onto a call. Okay. See you. So that's my unapologetic sales pitch for our program, and I hope everybody joins in because I think you're gonna benefit immensely from it. Let's open up for Q&A. Everybody needs to be unmuted. And yes. If you guys aren't sitting in the bathroom, if you're actually sitting in front of your computer, put your cameras on. It's nice to see everybody. Okay, here we go. All the good-looking people on this call. Perfect. Okay, so let her rip.
Yep. So we've got some people who have asked questions. So from Andre, Hi, everybody. I wrote the question down. I bought a business 3 weeks ago, junk removal and bin rentals, and I found out that there was lots of misrepresentation. I gave the owner 50% down, and the rest seller financing for 2 years. And within 1 week of operation, I found so many flaws, and I'm trying to reverse the sale and return the business back to the buyer, to the seller. How do I do it properly? So like I made lots of mistakes, but my first time.
Okay. So first of all, Andre, you should have met me a year ago. That's number one. That's my first thing. But so now you're in this situation. So here's what you need to do. You got to document everything that not what they just told you, but anything that you may have via email or information that they provide, whether it was the listings. Is there a broker involved?
No.
Okay.
Pilot.
So anything, go through any of the written stuff that they may have provided to you, whether by email, whether it be listing sheet, whether it be financials that they sent you, tax returns, whatever is written or documentation, you have to go through all of that first and see and identify everything in the written stuff that was misrepresented. Okay, because the conversations, he said, she said, that's difficult. That's the first thing. So you have that put down in place. I'd sit down with you. Have you spoken with the seller yet?
Yeah, I spoke with him, and he's okay, but now he says I want to withhold some money, and we have a next meeting on Friday. Kind of, I'm helping him to sell it now, and I put it all over the place. I
So
want to stay friends. I don't want to go to the court or anything like this.
no, okay. So that was my next point, was you want to first have those itemized because you want to keep this thing friendly, transparent, if at all possible. But if it gets litigious, you need to have your information. Going to the courts, going to attorney is plan B. Okay. You want to try to resolve this face to face with them and say to them, look, I bought this business with good intentions. Okay. I gave you 50% down. Okay. I'm not like, I agreed to pay you another 50%. I never had any intention of screwing you for $1. I would never do that. But there's stuff that was said, stuff was done, some you may know about, some you didn't know about, whatever the case may be. I can't buy this business. I don't want to go to court. I need to get my money back. Okay.
Luckily, I put a termination clause there. So from first payment to the second payment, there are 3 months, and I have a chance to return it. But he says, this is not right.
Well, you know what? If there's you bear part of this responsibility. Okay. You bought this business. You had every opportunity to go through the due diligence, do the examination. If there's fraud and misrepresentation, that's entirely different. If it's stuff that you overlooked, it's sort of shame on you. And so you need to have somewhere in the middle. You don't have to disclose to everybody how much this amount is, but you may have to take a bit of a haircut on some of the amount. You do not pay the seller note, do not pay 1 penny. Okay. So whatever money you put down, you need to come up with an arrangement with them. Okay. You may have to take a little bit of bath on it, but keep one thing. The way I would look at this is I'm going to pick out an arbitrary number. Let's say you gave them $100,000. Okay. You're going to spend $50,000 a minimum on an attorney. You may spend $250,000. Okay. And so what I would look at it and say, you know what, if I go to attorney, I'm going to spend $25,000 just like to get the introduction and sit in their fancy office. So that might be my cost of goods sold. And so the first thing is I would try to resolve it with them face to face. And then if you want, you have my email address. I can give you a second level of direction as to how you should potentially treat that.
Okay. Yeah. I would love your email address. I would love to have it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Sorry you're going through this. We'll help you try to get out semi-alive.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Who has the next question?
We have May who has a question next. So May, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, great. Thank you, Richard. Really great session. Always learn so much from you. So when it comes to dealing with proprietary, I've had a couple owners who said, oh, I've been advised maybe I should go to a broker. Maybe I should, see if I can get it, what it's worth, etc. So do you have some, in addition to kind of telling them, conveying to them that you can manage the process, which is what you said, do you have any other counterpoints that you found helpful specifically to convince them that maybe it's not a good idea, it could take longer, whatever? Like, what are some of the points you might
Well, the first thing that I tell them is, look, that may be your best decision. I get that. Say, but before you start even going down that road, why don't we meet? Okay, that's the first thing is let's meet. Okay. And
Yeah.
then if and so, because that's the only opportunity I have to establish that relationship. Now, once you're there and you don't feel comfortable managing the process, or for whatever reason, or there's not that mutual comfort, is just saying, you know what, what I like to do is say, after the first meeting, say, you know what we can do is, why don't we have your next meeting between whoever your accountant, your attorney, whatever. I'm happy to meet with them. Okay, as well. And so I would try as long as possible to stop getting them from thinking from hiring a broker, and say, look, if you want to go down the road of hiring a broker, that's fine. But besides the money and besides how they market this business, okay, your whole compensation could change to you because you're paying a broker. And then you got to make sure you hire the right broker. So I would keep the conversation going without question, and without a doubt say, look, it may be the right decision, but let's meet first. Okay. And if you want to bring in your attorney, and then if you see it starts to go a little bit sideways, you may want to speak to the attorney.
Got
Okay.
it.
If they start to feel, because in that first meeting, what you want to do is, of course, establish a relationship, but you're going to start to see some of their hot buttons. And if it's legacy, you have a different approach. If it's all money, there may be a different approach as well. You know, sellers they may do what they want to do, of course, but getting that first meeting in front of them is critical, because first of all, everybody loves May. And by the way, May, I spent 3 days with May and a couple of her colleagues in Mexico. I did the educational component for the Regenerative Capital Group. Everybody loves May. So May, I'm betting on you. You sit in front of anyone, everybody's going to love you. I mean, they'll get a very good sense of your intelligence and your sincerity. And so for everyone, I really advise the same thing. Get in front of the seller. As we talked about in one of the slides, they may go that route anyways, but you give yourself a fighting chance by getting in front of them.
Okay, that's great.
And the other thing, by the way, when they say, I want to speak to my attorney, you ask them, is your attorney an M&A attorney? Because they may tell you, oh, no, it's my brother-in-law, the patent attorney. Well, what the hell does he know about doing these deals? Right? So say at the very least, you should probably be speaking to a transactional attorney. And this way you get some valid information.
Great. Thank you so much.
Next one is with Caitlin.
Okay, I appreciate it. I know we spoke about, if you have a listing that you're interested in, how you should reach out to the broker. I'm wondering, to kind of build that broker network, how does that approach change? If I'm, looking at brokers in my area, maybe they don't have a listing that I'm interested in, but I'd like to see new things that they might have in the future. How do I come across as a legitimate buyer? Does that change, that approach?
Yes, it does. And it's a great question, because they may not even have a listing that you're interested in. And so one of the things that we talked about in an earlier session is, again, similar to sellers, is go meet with them. They deal with people all day long that they never hear from again. They don't know who they are. They don't know the level of sincerity. They don't know if they can even get to the finish line, and they don't necessarily keep everybody in mind, but you want to just at least have a conversation with them. Even if it's not a business that they have available that may be for sale, ask them if you could speak to them or meet at their offices and convey to them, when you have, again, this is really important when they don't have a listing, because when they do have a listing, you could at least have the conversation. If they don't have a listing, you want to have the introduction and the conversation as well. So that's one thing. When it's ones that have a listing, and let's say the listing is not for you, make sure first of all, you return the call or an email to them saying to them, that you're not interested, but say, I'd like to spend 15 minutes on the phone with you or what have you to explain to you what I'm looking for and ask you to keep in mind. And the other thing that I urge everybody on this call to do, brokers won't keep you in mind. So you have to keep in mind to help them keep you in mind. Okay. And so when you build your resource list of who's in your area, drop the brokers an email periodically, or give all the brokers a call every, 2-3 weeks. Hello, how are you? Anything doing? Have you found anything, etc.? Because if not, they're just going to find someone else in mind. So, Caitlin, I'm not sure if I want to make sure I answered your question specifically, because I wasn't sure if it was related to, listings that are available or other ones. Is there any follow-up questions or something that I missed?
My search is not defined by location. Like I'm fairly location agnostic. So there are going to be brokers that, are not in my area that I want to reach out to. Is it email? Is it phone call?
Phone call.
It's going to be a bother. Phone call.
Yes. Now, it may be a combination of all of them, because they're notorious for not answering emails or inquiries, but I absolutely would call them. And the other thing that I would do, if it's not a specific business that you're just reaching out to them, but they don't have a particular listing of the business, get the information on the business brokerage and call the owner of the brokerage. That I wouldn't do that. If there's a particular business that you like, call the brokers representing it. If you're just reaching out to a business brokerage office and you know that they may have some stuff there, call the owner of the business brokerage office and tell them you'd like to speak to them.
Okay, amazing.
And-
That's really helpful. I appreciate it.
No problem. Go back to work and don't tell you, and be nice, or if not, I'm telling your boss.
Thank you.
I'll be sure to remove your last name in the edit.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's another question here. This is actually more of a clarification from, is it Arseni?
Yes, correct. Hi, everyone.
Arsini. Okay. Hi, Arsini.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I just posted my quick question because there are two online platforms to buy the course from. My understanding there is no difference, dioma.com or richardparker.com,
No,
right?
I'll tell you, I'm going to give you a marketing lesson 101.
Okay.
We used to have richardparker.com with all our information, free resources, articles, every podcast that I've been on is there. And Diomo used to be the site where we just used to sell the course, and then we just combined everything. So it's either one of those. We'll get you to it actually gets you to the same order card. It was just more strategically, and you'll see if hopefully we'll still all be talking together in a few months from now, and eventually everybody's going to port over to richardparker.com. Exact same thing. Thank you for checking.
Okay. Oh, since I got an opportunity, I actually do have a question. I was just thinking, like, sometimes I come across of listings, seeing that they're under LOI, right? Do you think it's worth of reaching out, even though the listing is stated as under LOI, to see if there is an opportunity in future in case it falls apart?
100% yes.
Do you, from your experience, are there actually many deals happen after unsuccessful LOI, or
50% of the deals in small businesses fall apart in due diligence?
Oh, okay.
And it's not because necessarily that the business has a problem. Oftentimes the buyer has a problem. Okay, can't get the funding or find something in due diligence that they can't live with. I don't believe, by the way, in putting in backup offers, just to let you know. If someone says, well, we'll show you the business and we're taking up backup offers, I never put in a backup offer because I don't want to spend the money. I tell them, look, if this deal falls apart, call me back. I'm very interested. But I would never hesitate to contact the broker or submit a level of interest if it says under LOI. Absolutely 100% I say yes.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Does anybody else have a question for Richard?
Boy, that's easy. You guys know everything. So I wanted to make sure we got.
I have another one.
Yes.
So I've met a few, these entrepreneurs are always so interesting. Some of them have many businesses, and I've met a few that they have complementary businesses. So they give each other business. Like, for example, a construction company also has a developer company, has a software company, and they sort of, they're related. And so if they're trying to sell one of the businesses, I wonder if you see that as a red flag or a opportunity, assuming they still want to run the other businesses as well, and that you'd still have some opportunity to do business with each other. Like I've just come across it a few times, and I'm a bit puzzled by it seems complicated.
Well, it usually is a plate of spaghetti, because very often there's like commingling between the different companies. You want to make sure each business is run legitimately. Sometimes they pay the employees or contractors from one company who actually did work for another company. And so it could become difficult, but you need to carve out and treat them all separately. It could be an opportunity, but could also be a red flag. And the thing that you have to be careful about is, for example, they're a developer and they have a construction company, and they have a plumbing and heating company, and they have a site preparation business. Okay. Well, and you're thinking about buying the site preparation business. And it's all great, but you got to find out how much business comes from the developer. Like very often there's customer concentration, because they're, each one of those companies are the other company's biggest accounts. And there could be inaccurate allocation of expenses. Well, we charge each company 5% for, co-management or, intercompany transfers or that type of thing. So you have to be very careful. Like, can you really carve it out? I mean, and yes, they can be opportunities, but it has to be for you to be able to do your investigation for that business uniquely. Now, some owners are fantastic. They keep everything separate. I have a client right now, it was a huge business. They're actually going to sell it for probably I think about $80 million. They have 7 companies, each company completely autonomous. And every company's been built to stand on its own. That's rare, especially when you get into the companies where there's, I think they're ancillary or incestuous businesses, like the developer who has the contractor, who has the site preparation, who has the plumbing or the HVAC business. There's very often it's like you can't figure out how you're going to figure this thing out. So you got to, that's really at the beginning and find out how much business goes between the companies, how much commingling. Does every company have its own set of books and records? Are there any people that work that are common to multiple companies? You might have someone who's the CFO who's doing the work for 5 companies. And you say, well, I need a CFO. So understanding what the commingling is. It's probably all legal, but internally, like, does every company stand on its own?
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Of course. So if we have no more questions, it means everybody knows everything. I see Christopher with a big smile. You guys are good? No questions?
Mine.
Oh yeah, Mike.
Hey Richard, big fan.
What's happening in the hockey world, Mike? I mean, the season's over for my Habs. I got to figure out now. I'm just waiting for the Buffalo Bills to start playing.
I know it's a tough part of year.
Mark's a Canadian, so you can always talk hockey with Canadians.
Thanks, Richard, for this. Is awesome. I just have a question, like talking about pricing with an owner. What if you've established like a great rapport, everything's going well, but then you get to that point where like, what would you like for the business? And their number is just like absurd, you know, because they've heard from like a neighbor that, you know, so-and-so got a business for 8 times EBITDA. What's your advice for dealing with a business owner that probably has a little bit of unrealistic expectation of what their business is worth?
First of all, let me answer the second question first. Almost every business owner has an unrealistic expectation of what their business is worth. And that's the optimal word, because what they think their business is worth has nothing to do with the value. The second thing is I wouldn't ask them, what do you think your business is, the value of their business is? I'd want to get the financials from them, put them through the grinder of your own internal valuations to see what you come up with. And then you can touch upon where you think they are, because that'll pretty much come up early. But I think it's very important. It is very important for you to demonstrate, here's how I came about the value. Because if you don't have a defensible valuation, you got no leg to stand on. And so very often you need to say to them, look, okay, now we're getting to the nitty gritty, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Here's what I came up related to valuation. You will find that during these conversations, everybody's afraid to admit like that number first, right? Because whoever names the number first always loses. So no one wants to say the number, but you got to get to it. All right. And so when they have their neighbor, the landscaper told them, yeah, you should get 8 times, right? Because he read something in the Wall Street Journal that is a $2 billion publicly traded company in a similar industry that got an 8 times multiple that has nothing to do with their business. That's down on Main Street or whatever. So I think you got to get to that at a reasonable period of time and make sure that your numbers are defensible. We talked about that last week, going through, here's how I went about coming up with this number. So many businesses traded at this. I've done discounted cash flow, done this, whatever. And I'm a believer in using multiples of sellers' discretionary earnings. But if you're able to demonstrate to them how you came up with the number, then you have at least more of a leg to stand on. That's number one. Number two, oftentimes, this may not always be helpful, you have to bring their accountant into the equation. Now, their accountants typically in small business value them incorrectly because they use the balance sheet and they think, a business, it's got great assets, it's worth a lot. And my argument always is, well, if you have a business with tons of assets and it's not making any profit, and you have a business that has no assets and making gobs of money, which business is worth more? So the CPAs typically look at it from an asset perspective, but sometimes you need someone to weigh in who they, is at least on their team, and you can get the conversation going. And they could say, okay, an accountant, when you walk the accountant through how you came up with the number, sometimes that's the best way to make your case. But I would completely avoid saying to them, what do you think the business is worth? And if that somehow comes out, by the way, just sort of like negotiating tactics, by the way, if the seller, whoever names their number first, we talked about it, loses. But if the seller throws a number out to you, always gasp. Okay? Like no matter what number they tell you, you're like, whoa. Okay? Because people have this tendency, and this isn't just negotiating strategies, people always have a tendency to want to soothe someone else's pain. That's just human nature. And so you may get past that. You may get into the conversation. It's not going to cause any harm. But whenever somebody is a price, it's like, whoa. And then you can get a little deeper into the conversation. But I would certainly avoid you asking them what they think it's worth and making sure. And the most important thing is you have to have it defensible. Because if you can't get to a deal, at least you know your valuation is accurate.
Thank you very much.
Christopher, oh, no problem, man. Nice to see you, buddy.
Thank you.
Christopher Villegas. I hope I pronounced it properly. You can go.
I guess go ahead, Chris.
Okay.
Did I pronounce everything properly?
It's Villegas Cho. So Villegas, the double L
Villegas Cho.
and
Okay.
they end up sounding like a Y. Yeah, so one question I had on my mind was related to developing a pipeline of inbound leads. So obviously brokers are developing deeper relationships with a broker network makes sense, but are there any other pathways that come to mind that would be good resources for deal flow for inbound leads?
Okay, so a couple things. The first webinar that we did, which is about a little over 2 hours, talks about the right business and creating deal flow. So I do urge you to watch that, but I want to answer your question. The first part is don't count on the brokerage network to create your deal flow, because their agenda is to sell businesses and they are not going to reach out. It's the path of least resistance. And so you do get the word out to them, and that's okay. And Caitlin, as we talked about earlier, it's important to establish that, but you need to create the ability to generate your own deal flow. And that will come from a multiple pillars. Okay. One is you're going to have to go meet tons of sellers in ancillary industries, because if you're thinking about buying, we'll talk about the site preparation business. You want to go meet as many site preparation businesses, developers, and other people within similar industries, because very often you get your leads from businesses that you go and visit that you're not even going to buy. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is accountants, attorneys, networks. I would speak to investment bankers. Even if you're looking to buy a business for $1 million, go speak to investment bankers that sell businesses at minimum EBITDA of $5 million as an example, because what happens is business owners go to them and they say, well, you're too small for us. Thank you very much. They see a lot of deals that they don't even represent. And they'll be good about saying, well, I have someone you may want to talk to. Okay. So that's a very good way to do it. The other way, I do the same thing with PE firms. PE firms, the average PE firm gets 1,000 decks a year and buys one business. So there's 999 that they don't buy. And of those, there's probably 300 of them that have no representation, or the seller has no idea what to do. So that's another good place. So the key in with deal flow is you got to get the word out to everybody at every opportunity, okay, in every situation. So that encompasses brokers, accountants, attorneys, investment bankers, private equity, get invited to the Chamber of Commerce. And every single person that you meet, you let them know that you're looking to buy a business. Now, it's very important with all of this, the quicker you hone into the type of business that's right for you, the more effective that conversation can be. Because you say to someone, you say to Rodrigo, hey, Rodrigo, I'm looking to buy a business. Rodrigo says, what type? He said, I don't know. I want to buy a business, right? So that's not very effective. But when you say to them, look, I'm looking to buy a site preparation business. Have you heard of anything? Okay. Keep me in mind. That becomes more effective. Then leads will happen. And then you may want to do a direct solicitation. We covered that in the first webinar. We've had, our clients have had success rates all over the place, like from 2% to 40% return. It's a little crazy, but a direct solicitation can be incredibly effective, but it has to be specific. You don't want to just send out 1,000 letters to different businesses. You want to send out 100 letters to site preparation companies. And so you have to narrow your focus of what type of business makes sense for you before you start doing direct solicitations. But what I would suggest is go back and watch the first webinar. I think it was March 20th. It'll show in there, and there was a few hundred views. Watch that part. If there's anything that you don't understand or you want to have a conversation afterwards, whatever, email me and I can take you through some more of the detailed points related to that. Okay, all good? Christopher Villegas Cho. Right, got it.
Excellent. So Jacob's been very patient. Jacob?
He's a very patient guy. I speak to him twice a week.
How you doing, Richard?
Terrific. How are you?
Well, thank you. This has been great as always. It's always a pleasure to learn from you, and I hope to learn from others. Thank you guys for asking questions. They're always so beneficial to me as well. I have two questions, if that's okay. All
Go
right.
ahead.
So the first question I have is I wish I would have taken this course about a month ago because I was talking to a seller and basically I messed up. He gave me his business card, but on his business card wasn't his personal email address. It was his company email address. So I sent him like, "Hey, it was very nice meeting with you, blah blah blah." Well, it went to his employees, and his employees didn't know he was considering selling the business. Yeah, I know. Anyway,
Okay, well, shit happens. You got to go past that.
right,
Okay.
exactly. So, but anyways, it's not like he wasn't not still considering anymore. But he did start to kind of drift away, I guess is the best way you could say.
Yep.
Time started to get between his responses. And then finally he was like, "Hey, listen, I've been thinking about this. Maybe this isn't the best time, but you can periodically check in with me." So I guess what would be a beneficial way to kind of reach back out and, get him back on board, or at least get him willing to entertain a face-to-face conversation again?
When was the last time you spoke to him?
Probably about a month ago, month and a
Okay.
half.
I would wait a little bit. How close are you located to him?
20 minutes, not far.
What I would try to do for the next time is take him for lunch.
Show up at his place or just
Call
give
him.
him a call?
Call him.
Yeah.
Call him. Yeah, call him. And if he says, "Look, I'm not interested now," or whatever, say, "No problem. I completely understand. I'd like you to take you to lunch because I have a couple questions for you, and maybe we'll pick up the conversation again in a year from now. But you have time for a coffee or a beer or lunch or whatever, and just try to keep the conversation going. If there's no interest, that's fine. You just want to keep you in mind for when that time comes. The flip side of this may never happen. So I would, I don't think there's hard rules related to when you should or should not get back in touch with him. I mean, you screwed up the first thing, but it doesn't sound like it's the end of the world. At least he's talking to you. I mean, this is a positive, right? And he hasn't sent goons to your house in the middle of the night to whack you. So that's a good thing. And so I'd speak to him and ask him if you can get together. And if he says, no need or whatever, say, fine, you wait another couple months, goodbye. You're never going to force someone to sell your business. And as a broker or people that work on the other side, I always tell them, you're never going to force someone to buy a business. Each party has to reach that decision on their own and come to an agreement. And so for, to keep things nice between you, I'd ask them to get together. And if it's another couple of months, it's another couple of months. But I wouldn't push it because you're never going to convince someone to sell. Even if you put in an offer and you're in no position to do so, people have to come to they have to arrive at that decision. And so for me, what I would be looking to do, if you really like that business, I would want to make sure that I regain this guy's trust and that he learns to like me over over a reasonable period of time.
Well, I appreciate that. And just to be a good steward of your time, we'll just jump right into the next one. So I have about 150 direct solicitation letters I'm about to send out today. Just to help manage my expectations in your experience, what is a decent turnaround time that I'm looking at to start getting responses, if any, right, from these business owners?
Who's sending the letter?
Not an attorney, myself. I could not. I reached out to 4 attorneys. Not one attorney took me up on that offer. They all told me to go to hell. Sorry, but
you have any friends? You have any friends that are attorneys?
My mother's an attorney, but I'm not going to burden her with that. And I do have.
Why not? You were born to burden your mother.
Well, she's burdened with other issues right now.
Okay, so what I would do is instead of sending out 150 of them, I would send out roughly half and see what the response is, or I'd send out 50 and see what the response is. Response times are all over the place. I've had them like a day later. Other ones, I had one, actually, this is in a brokerage world where solicitation is sent out, and I got a call 3 years later and ended up doing a deal with the guy. So it's hard to guess expectations. Like I said, even in the most articulate plans where we've done them, we've had from 2 to 40%. They should come. You're actually mailing out at a good time, past individual tax time, January, February, March. You're past the quarter, so you should see. There's no reason why the interested party shouldn't turn it around pretty quickly. I want to make sure a couple of things. The every envelope is typed properly. It's not a label, right?
I'll show you real quick. It's I have it on a nice little letter on linen paper.
Nice.
I can't see. I know it's kind of blurry, guys. Sorry. And then every is in a little envelope like this, handwritten to the owner, etc. Then I've signed it and
Stamped.
Stamped. Oh, I haven't put stamps on them yet. I'm going
But
to post
you're gonna put stamps, not let them run them through the meter, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you have your return address on there?
Not yet.
Okay, but you'll have your return address, and you may want to have personal and confidential on the paper, on the to the addressee.
Okay. Okay. What was the reasoning for sending out 50 instead of all of them?
I think you may want to test to see what the reaction is, because maybe you want to adjust the way it's written. Maybe you want to adjust the bullet points, or I would test and say you put 3 or 4 bullet points in there in the type of business that you're looking for.
I'm sorry, you kind of come in a little broken.
Okay, sorry.
Repeat
In your
that.
letter, you have 2 or 3 or 4 bullet points of what you're looking for in a business.
Correct.
So what you may want to do, unless they're all printed already, you may want to do a few, sample 3 different types of bullet points. 50,
Okay.
like with these 3, 50 of those, 350 of those, keep a record, and then you can measure, see which ones get the other response, because you can always I sent these 3 bullet points to these 50. Well, you might have to do another mailing in a month, and you take those bullet points and send them to another 50.
Got you.
You never know what sort of sparks someone's interest to that. And expectations wise, I think you keep them at 0, so this way you're not disappointed. But you actually don't. You don't know. I mean, you should at 150. You should get the turnaround will be you'll get turnaround within 3-4 weeks after receipt.
Okay.
For somebody.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
No problem. Anybody else? Everybody else knows everything. No, good. If anybody has any question, please, I'm happy to stay on as long as you need me to.
Andre's next.
Thank you, Richard. I really want to say the words of appreciation. So far, I went through many different information books, courses, and you have the most complete information that I discovered. It's really precise. Just wanted to say the word of appreciation. And do you consult or you mentor? Because I want to know more.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate those your kind comments. Thank you. That's very nice of you to say that. I used to do a lot of one-on-one consulting. It was consulting with individuals, and it was very lucrative. I mean, I used to get paid like $750 an hour. And the problem was, and I had a waiting list. It was ridiculous. But the thing was, I found that I never reached enough people. So that's why I incorporated into the course people who purchase our material. You can call me anytime. Typically, the most effective way to work is you send me an email with an overview of the situation, because oftentimes you need to have a record of what it is that you asked me and the answer that I provided, because you may want to look back at it. But separate to that, when people get into the throes of the deal, I'm always happy to get on a call with people and walk them through them 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, no problem. Sometimes it takes a little bit of scheduling. Once you get into really involved in the deal, email usually works very effectively. But Britton and I are having our second call this week, this afternoon. So,
Nice.
but the email usually works most effectively. I spend probably at least half of my day answering emails. And that's why I try not to do the one-on-one, because it's very lucrative, but I don't reach enough people, right? So this way, that's why I added it to the materials. And again, I thank you for your kind words. It's very nice.
Yeah, thank you. Then I'll have you next time. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Andre.
Awesome. Britton, you're next.
Hey, the audio coming through okay?
Perfect.
Perfect. Thinking about motivated seller and having that right setup kind of baked in at the get-go, and even before you submit an LOI, to your story that was about the guy needing to move out before Memorial Day, and it was just like a true motivated seller and someone that would be willing to bite. I'm engaging with someone that it seems like they're going to just move into a new focus. And so they're just kind of looking for a good cash out. And so I've not really gained a really good sense of motivation to sell. They don't have to sell, I guess, if that's the one of the differentiators. And then looking to even start a new kind of venture from scratch. And so I just wanted to get your opinion on general seller criteria from when do you say it's not even worth, or maybe it's worth putting an offer in, but don't get your hopes up kind of thing on that kind of scenario?
Okay, so the first thing is it was actually Labor Day weekend, not Memorial Day, but that gives you some context because it happened right around Memorial Day, and but
Okay.
he wanted to be gone by like I think he wanted to be Labor Day wanted to be in the new house.
Okay.
So very often you don't a motivated seller um is obviously better, but motivation takes different guides. Motivation may be I'm motivated to sell versus motivated meaning it's urgent that I sell or I'm going to lower my price, and that's motivation. Motivation just means the seller has reached the decision that they want to sell. And oftentimes they aren't there, even though their business is on the market. They're thinking that it depends on what the deal looks like, or they don't understand the process. And so they always have a different there's different scenarios, and you've heard it enough for me how important it is to have that relationship with individuals and to establish that first. But realistically, there's only one way to find a seller's level of motivation. You have to put in an offer.
Okay.
That's the only way. It's the only way to measure their hot buttons. It's the only way to find out if they're serious. It's the only way to find out if they're going to be insulted. And don't worry about insulting them, because guaranteed the price that they think their business is worth is insulting to the buyer. So don't worry about insulting them. But oftentimes the only way to get the juices going is you got to put in an offer.
Okay.
And that's why in those cases, you don't want to spend $5,000 with an attorney writing up a definitive purchase agreement. You want to write up an LOI. You want to run it by your attorney, or make sure it's a template that your attorney already used. We have a template in the course that we use, but if you start adding contingencies, you got to be cautious with it. Make sure that you could it's non-binding, and you put in an offer. Like, you've got to make offers. We have that formula that says you got to do this in 60 days. You got to find, it's 4 months to look, 4 categories, minimum 4 offers, a month to negotiate and done to due diligence. You've got to get comfortable making offers and getting offers refused. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying recklessly, or business is worth $1 million and you're offering 200,000. You want to have, you'd be reasonable about it. You got to get used to making offers. It's like, and I promise you, it's like just hard the first time.
I'm definitely, as you say that, it's like feeling very offer shy, of like, that's, it's a binding, scary moment. And,
of course,
I've been ramping back up and had gone through offer before. And anyway, just,
don't over-index this thing. Keep it, if you're not sure about the transaction, like I like to button up a seller as much as possible, go through as many contingencies as possible. If you've done a lot of due diligence beforehand, it's not always possible. The seller may not be motivated. You may think that what you think your value is nowhere close to what the seller is. There may be other people in the market. Whatever the case may be, you got to get comfortable making offers.
Good. Okay. Thank you for
that. Gets them juices going, baby.
That's good. That's right. Yeah. Put your money where your mouth is. I love it. Thank you, Richard.
Of course. No other questions. Remember my cousin Vinny? No further questions.
I'll jump in. And this might
Jessica, how are you?
I'm great, Richard. Nice to see you again. This one is focused less on making the offers, and I'm trying to continually optimize my sim review. So a question that I ask a lot of searchers, and I don't think I've asked you before, is you talked a lot about, as a part of prepping for that owner meeting, you review the deck. Even if it's, and I'm talking about one that's working with a broker. Do you have a process of reviewing a sim or a data room? And like, what is approximately how long do you take?
Okay, so here's my process. Or as you say in Canada, here's my process. So here's my process. I read the deck without taking notes first. Then I read the deck and I put the notes right into each section. I print it out. I don't put it online. I don't use a PDF. I don't use comments, because sometimes I'm driving in the car and I think about it and want to write it down. So I print it out. I read it first. I don't put any notes down. I just want to get a bit of an understanding for it without having any bias. And then I read it again and I put my notes in, and then I'll start doing some preliminary research, being stuff that I just want to verify, whatever. And then I organize those questions together. Sometimes I can ask the seller, the buyer or broker beforehand, and I take those questions and I I make sure that they're nicely written. Usually with my handwriting, I got to print out another version for my seller meeting. But when I go to the meeting, I go right through the deck. Here are my questions. So I don't take those and transpose them and organize. I say, okay, I have a bunch of questions for the deck. Here's your deck. By the way, it's very well written, Mr. Broker, even if it's the worst piece of garbage that I ever got. It's very well written. And let's go. When I get to that point, go through my questions. That's it, because it's right in their deck. And so that's my process. But the first thing is reading it without taking notes. Because what happens, you know nothing about it. And so very often you read through the first time and you get to a section and you say, oh, I have a question, whatever. But it's answered 4 pages later. And the other thing, by the way, very, very rarely do I get neurotic with the numbers in the deck. I just look at them to get an idea of what they look like. Like I'm not looking to find problems or issues in the numbers or questioning stuff. I mean, if something sticks out like margin, this and that, I first want to get an understanding of the business. Like I just want to, walk me through, like I want to understand how does a sale happen? Like that type of stuff before I don't want to get into the weeds at the beginning.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. That's it. That's all. 1:58. Look at that. 2 minutes to spare. See ya. And I was prepared to stay all afternoon. We may be doing so. I'll send out an email to everybody after this. We have today's Wednesday. Probably sometime over the weekend we'll have the video of this. Sia has to remove the word where I said SHIT, and so she's going to have a little bit more editing than normal. We try to have the video up in a few days so you guys can look at it. Let's see what else. I'll probably send you an email if there's any questions. Usually I get some questions that's coming right after. If there's anything that's confidential that you want to discuss separately and you didn't want to raise the question here, feel free to email me. My email is rp@richardparker.com. Very easy to remember. I am going to think about the idea of doing, there's a lot of work goes into the webinars, and I really appreciate everybody's participation, getting the PowerPoint done and what have you, and see us help. I'd like to do these every couple of weeks, but I may think about doing a Q&A session in the middle weeks, like just on a Friday for an hour or whatever, because anybody has questions in between. So may think about doing that. We will send out a notification when the next webinar is going to be. It'll be a post on Search Funder, and I'll send everybody an email. I would appreciate everybody getting the word out. Right. So if you use Search Funder and you see it on a post, people just register, whatever, add a comment in their post, tell me, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't go there, or whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you want to post. But it's nice to get, we want to get more people involved and more conversation, more, we get more people who have more questions, all that type of stuff. So anytime, if you feel positive about what we talked about today and in your own social media and whatever, please help get the word out. That's great. But we'll talk about doing one. Again, I'm going to look at my agenda here, and we'll probably do some like May 1st, something that week, the worst case, the 8th, we'll cover another subject matter. And again, thank you everybody for attending. This is great. I hope you found the time productive, and I really appreciate everybody's time and all your wonderful feedback, and look forward to seeing you guys again in a couple of weeks.